Hello, First United Methodist Church, Winter Park. It's Craig Bloker here with our daily devotion as we seek to find hope together through this season of disruption. Today, we're going to continue our series looking at missions in the church and how we ought to be in service in our community and around the world. I have a special guest today, and as way of introduction, found a quote by a pastor, Scott Sauls, who's a pastor of a big Presbyterian church up in Nashville, that also ties in with our last sermon series on the fruit of the Spirit. And I think a particularly good word for us as we find ourselves in this kind of chaotic moment in culture. He says, if our voices aren't adding love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control to the atmosphere, then we ought to reconsider our postures. There is so much hurt in the world. The Spirit's fruit is our resource to protect, mend, and heal. And so today I have with us Lauren Berlin, who is our Director of Inua Operations here stateside. And she has been on staff, came on not too long before all of COVID shut down. So some of you have met her, many of you have not. And so she is, I am partial, but one of our real true rock star staff members. And I want you to have a picture of who she is, what she does, and some of her kind of picture in missions. And so welcome, Lauren. And I just want to start off by asking the question, kind of what's your experience in church growing up? And then particularly as it relates to the church and missions.
Yeah, thanks, Craig. So I grew up in Central Florida and started attending Northland, a church distributed in Longwood. So while I was involved in the youth group there in middle school and in my early years of high school, I was constantly missing youth group because I was traveling as I was seriously training for tennis. And so a lot of people at the church and my mentors knew how much I was involved in tennis, which I ended up experiencing an injury and then couldn't travel for tennis. And one of the youth pastors pulled me aside and asked if I would be interested in going on a trip to scout a potential piece of land in Upper Egypt that a sports camp would be built. And so I talked to my mom and he talked to my mom, and I went with a group of people, just different experts in different sports fields. And we went to literally the middle of nowhere in the desert, looked at some land, and from there it was kind of history. I was sucked into missions as a career now, and it's been really great. So I was able to work for about 15 years building sports camps and running sports ministries throughout North Africa and the very southern parts of Africa.
I'm sure you've got all sorts of wild stories from your time over there. If you were to boil down kind of how the church ought to engage in missions from your experience in Egypt, what would that kind of one takeaway be?
I think where it really boils down to is just the inviting people into missions. I got involved because somebody took an interest in what I was actually doing. So because they knew I was involved in playing tennis and I really loved the sport, and just sports in general meant a lot to me, there was a connection, and sports and music are universal languages. So no matter where you are in the world, if you put down a ball and start kicking it around, kids are going to come. My particular favorite thing to do is to fly a kite, because no matter where you are, you throw a kite in the air, just people gravitate over. Same with music. You start hitting some drums, you play some rhythms, you start singing some songs, whether you speak the same language or not, it's a communal aspect. So the fact that somebody in Longwood, Florida took an interest in what I was doing, gave me the invitation, and then took me over to the other side of the world. And then while over there, then I was having conversation and got to be brought into ministry over there. And then as I got to know them and the different people, then those conversations started to be had. And then it was, hey, how do we invite you into ministry of what we're doing here? How do we invite you into ministry of what we're doing in South Africa? So for me, missions is, we always think of us going and doing stuff, but I think it's a lot of us inviting people into what's going on and taking an interest in what people are doing in our own backyard to invite them to be part of stuff that is really great in other parts of the world with their gifts and talents as well.
Yeah, and we didn't go through the answers beforehand, but I love that, particularly in this season we find ourselves, of the reminder that the starting point is our shared humanity, that God has created all people, and that there is a sense of shared, even across cultures, even across different worldviews, that we start with that kind of connection point, and that can be kind of the launching off point where God can continue to grow or use that relationship. That's great. Now, something else about Lauren is she got her MBA from Rollins, and it was there that she had her first encounter or experience with Anua. So, do you mind sharing a little bit of how you heard about Anua, and then what about Anua was kind of intriguing to you?
Yeah. So I started to get my MBA, and so I was in the full-time program there. And just before I started in the at Crummer, I had gone off staff at Northland. So I was actually on staff at Northland for 10 years, and then just felt that God was calling me to a different area. And I had all this nonprofit and church experience in my background. So at Rollins, I was kind of the token nonprofit person in my cohort. So, and the fact that I had been to Africa, I had just gone to Tanzania and climbed Kilimanjaro with some friends the summer prior to going into grad school. So there, people are very familiar with my background at Rollins, and suddenly there was a group from Kenya that was coming to speak. So very quickly, they were not coming to speak to my class, but very quickly one of the professors grabbed me and was like, "Hi, this is Lauren. She has been to Africa. You guys should meet." So yay, just in the way that I've come to know like Patrick and Paul and even the Anua board, they were very quick to invite me to come and sit in the auditorium where Patrick was going to present about Anua. And while I was sitting in the auditorium, I've heard of many, many different groups of people who have gone to Africa and South America and Jamaica and Haiti, and are their hearts are in the right place and they're wanting to do good work. But a lot of it is going, doing work, and leaving. There's the relational aspect is not there. And I've seen firsthand of people going, setting up stuff, and then leaving, where they haven't taught the community what to do. They haven't worked alongside with the community there of the resources they have. So that way, when you leave, if something goes wrong, they know how to fix it. So I've seen where good intentions end up hurting the community. So when I was sitting in the auditorium and I'm listening and I'm like, oh, that's cool. There's a church in Winter Park that has partnered and they are sending people to Kenya. All right, and my skeptic hat went on and I was like, let's see what they're doing. And then they're talking about, they're working with the youth, the vulnerable and orphan children, and they are teaching them, and they're going through a training program where they're learning very specific life skills. They're learning very specific trades, and then they're setting them up for success by going through these training programs and internships. That way, then when they're graduating, they're self-sustaining, and then they can get out of generational poverty, and it's ending this cycle. And at that point, I was like leaning in, and I was like, okay, like they're doing it right. And then one of the classmates, they were going to be the cohort that would be working with Anua to help with a project. And so they were asking me questions. I was like, no, this is a legit program. You guys have so much fun. If you have questions about culture stuff, just let me know. And then one of my professors then asked if I would help with a case study. And then it was just after that, then different people from Rollins would kind of ask if I could help with some Anua stuff. And then after I graduated, I sent an email telling the board, hey, I'm staying local. If you guys need any help, just let me know. And now I'm on staff. So yeah.
Yeah, I love that God just works through connections for people. So we are certainly grateful for those professors at Rollins that saw a point of connection there um, to make that introduction. And so I don't want this just to be an infomercial for Enua. But Enua is our Keystone International Ministry. Many of you are involved, and some of you may just kind of are newer, or maybe wondering, what exactly, is Enua? How can I get involved? So, just to close, if you would share kind of one thing that you're really excited about of the work going on in Kenya now, that we are just so grateful to be a small part of as a church, for the great work that the staff is doing over there. And then how, if people want to learn more or become involved, how might someone do that?
Right. I think for me personally, what has been so exciting is that in 2020, there has been so much just darkness. There has been so much uncertainty, so much instability, and there's just a lot unknown, even now going into the next couple of weeks, going into the next couple of months, and in 2020. And yet, I am getting emails of smiling faces in Kenya of these youth who are learning their purpose and feeling that they have purpose. And currently, right now, we have 175 youth. These are orphans and vulnerable children who, could have just been casted aside, forgotten about, and just be a statistic of people who have been affected in a third world, and yet because of you know they have just different hardships and life circumstances that just make it impossible for them to succeed. Yet in 2020, which has been a year that's been so hard for so many of us, they've been on track. They've been pushing through. They've been going through their trainings. They are in internships. The youth are connected in just many great ways within their community. And what's so great is that they're connected to the church now. So they're also being fed spiritually, not just through their internships vocationally. So we are about to finish the first year of their cycle. So we're going to go into their second year, where they are going to continue with their training and setting up their jobs and producing income, and as well as just really continuing on their walk with the Lord, understanding who they are and how they were created. And it's just a very inspiring thing that even when there are super major challenges, you can overcome those, and you can see God working in the midst of it all. So if people want to get involved and learn more, they can go to our website, enuapartners.org, or you can call the church and ask for me, Lauren Berlin, or you can send me an email, and all my information is on the church website, or you can ask Pastor Craig when you see him online. Just pop in that chat bubble and say you want some more Enua information, and anybody at the church can point anyone in the right direction.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Lauren. And what a beautiful reminder for us that the gravity of just kind of thinking everything going on politically, and that gravity can be very strong, just kind of what's right in front of our faces, and just a great reminder that God always has been at work, and God is currently at work in the world, bringing hope and restoration and healing with these young people in Kenya. So Lauren, thank you so much for your faithful service to Enua and on church staff. And so just with that, thank you for your time. And just to close out with a reminder that you are loved, and go in peace, and that we will catch you next week. God bless.